Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And, Bill, we set up at the end of our last episode, we would have a little more of a discussion about the professional ethics as related to tyranny. And, there's a recent example of the House Judiciary Committee interviewing Attorney General Bill Barr about several things. And, watching that hearing, the questions of both sides and the answers seem to be really abandoning the principle of ethics, don't they?
Yeah, it's really disheartening. There is an ethic that goes with the legal profession and the medical profession, and there's ethics that go with the educational system. There's ethics that the media needs to follow regarding reporting and governance. I mean, if you're not having truth or letting truth work for you as a governing person, we can't have an adult conversation about things. We're distracting the child with the latest toy and the latest thing that you're hanging over their head and dangling, and all of a sudden the person's just going after the next shiny lure and the next thing that's presenting them. So regrettably, when they have a hearing like this and when the person does show, it's more about what kind of language can I put into place to not show something that's clear or honest, and not fall on the sword of truth or integrity, but how can I cover it up or distract it or move it away from the things? And it's not like that adults don't know that other adults lie. We know that people have selective truth. We know that parents do not tell their parents everything, their kids everything, or their elderly parents everything either, because out of protection, out of care for them. So truth has to take a back seat sometime. Yet when we get to when we get to something where you have, Barr coming in and answering questions, and then one side of questioning is looking to cover, distract, or create a false narrative, and the other side's going like, wait a minute, there's an overreach that just took place here, and we need to call you on it. And then the overreach is being called upon and called into. And then all of a sudden, people are going to cover that overreach.
Well, and what really interested me about the hearing, and I think is sort of the interesting thing to talk about here, Bill, is that you have both sides asking questions that are not trying to accomplish what you just said. If they were, they would be choosing their questions more carefully and be more pointed about them. And I have an example of a question from Democrat and a question from Republican related to the same subject. And let's
take that out for a spin.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to pull it back. And so the importance of the question why it was used the way it was, and then also how it was used to purchase truth, or the one that it wasn't it didn't get the quality of truth that you would have liked it to. So what challenge are you going to bring me today?
So
I'm enjoying the challenge.
The first question is Representative Pramila Jayapal from Washington. She's a Democrat. She asked Attorney General Bill Barr about the federal officers sent in to clear Lafayette Square near the White House ahead of the president walking into Lafayette Square. And then, of course, we all know about this, what's been coined as the photo op holding up the Bible in front of St. John's Church. But
Right.
she asked this question, instead of asking a direct question about, was it appropriate to use the military to clear the square of the protesters?
Right.
She loads in all this other foundational messages talking about, hey, and she says, let's all not pretend that my Republican colleagues and you, Mr. Barr, don't really know what these protests were really about the oppression of African Americans systemically for decades, if not 100 years. And she's putting all this stuff in there, and that the military was used to come in and clear the protesters, firing tear gas and other things into the crowd to get them to move for the president. And that there's so much other stuff thrown in there that it clouds the message and isn't very effective in asking the real pointed question, was it appropriate to use the military in that situation?
Yeah, I feel sad and disheartened that she was looking to prove something and build such a strong narrative around the proof that she was building, because she missed an opportunity to really purchase truth back from that event. And so let's talk about the mistake. And then, it's not like it's a mistake. It's a mistake. It's sort of like they were trained to do it. So it's sort of like when a kid doesn't know anything better, then you got to go like, well, they made this thing, but they didn't know any better. It's sort of like, yeah, they broke this thing, but they didn't know how valuable it was. They turned the hose on and put it in my back office so that the water filled the entire garage. They didn't know any difference, because that was fun, because they're kids and they play, right? So here she asked this question. It looks like it's I'm trying to get a got you question of, and hey, you and President Trump made a decision that affected one of the constitutional rights to peacefully assemble. Now, notice I started with what the constitutional right was: peacefully assemble.
That's very astute, Bill, to go with the Constitution.
Start with what the Constitution has it that people are allowed to assemble and peacefully protest. A.G. Barr, is that true? Oh, yes. Well, if the need for safety for the president is to be met, wouldn't the need for safety for the president be met if the president did not come out in the middle of a protest like that? Wouldn't that meet the need for safety for the president? Yes. So, in order to meet the need for the president for safety, I'm guessing that you and the team of people, the federal troops, were gathered to meet the need for safety for the president. Is that correct? Yes. And what message were you also sending to the protesters? That the president's message is more important than their messages. Is that what the message that the president was going for? See, he's on the plank now.
Yeah, no matter where he goes, it's gonna not look good.
No, it is not good. It's not good because you got to walk. I mean, the person's got to get him to walk the plank is an interesting way to put it, but it's getting the person to own accountability and truth for what the choice was. I can really get, and I could see how the president was looking to get a picture of himself with a Bible in front of the church. So it shows a sense of strength. Was the president was trying to demonstrate strength by taking a picture in front of a church? Is that what he was looking to do? Yes.
He probably would evade that one and say, well, I don't know what the president's motivations were. You'd have to ask him. I mean, he probably would avoid that. Yeah.
So you would like, you would like us to ask the president, but you're the person that's in front of him, and you are the person that was counseling him on getting to the church or not. Is that correct? Did you not know where everybody was going?
Very, very good, Bill. He would have to say,
did you
yes,
not know?
I did know. Yeah.
Did you know where everybody was going? Yes. Did you know you were going to the church? Yes. Did you know that the president was going to take a picture with the Bible? Did you know that? No, I did not know that. So you were meeting the need for safety for the president at the expense of the people protesting. Is that what you were choosing to do?
Boy, this really wise line of questioning would make Barr look bad. It would call him out on a lot of stuff, wouldn't it?
See, what I'm doing is I'm just stating what he was doing, not proving he was wrong.
Or trying to prove that he was wrong in a manufactured soundbite crafted for television, because that to me is the disappointing thing of what that representative was doing, asking that question. And all of them, quite honestly, asking questions, they're preloading them with what they believe not only is the question
they think it's going to,
but the answer.
Yeah, they think it's going to work. They think the person is going to go have a conscience, and they have no idea the level of protection that's up with the person. And they get a little bit of gotcha, like, well, he's evading because of Pepperball. That's not what's translating.
Well, it's not. You're right. But what does end up translating and became probably a bigger soundbite on other news stations that, were focused more on providing some support for the administration and for Barr, is that Barr latched on to something in her question that was unnecessary at the time and gave him an out to distract from her point, because she used the word tear gas, right?
That's correct. And one of the things that you'll notice that in the that there's a language tactic called look for the weakest word. That's a language tactic. I am going to find the word that I can use a different definition than the person's using the definition for. I have a truth around this word that is a different truth than the way you're using it. Many words have many definitions, many different definitions to them. There's 4 definitions for the word plan. I mean, that's how weird this gets. All right. So if we're going to have power with, and also have compassion for the difficulty that Barr is in when the president / his boss says, I want to go for a walk. I'm the president. This is going to be good optics. Watch what happens, because I'm going to demonstrate that I have power over these people and I can use the troops anytime I want. And that preamble allows Portland to show up. That allows Portland to take place. You pick a city that and a state that you're not going to win anyways.
Right.
And you're going to come into that place and demonstrate an authoritarian power. Have moments of tyranny where unmarked people that are not held accountable as individuals. See, if you put your name tag on and you put where you're coming from, people can find you legally. And that is a good thing, because We do not want a police state with unarmed persons that you do not know. Here's the important part. You don't know if this person dressed in fatigues is a legal police officer person or someone that's just dressed like that. That's why that rule's in place, is you don't know unarmed militias. This is the same thing that Putin did in Crimea. Same. It's the same.
Wow.
Same thing in the Ukraine. Same. Unlabeled people. I don't know. They're just military guys. No, they're not. They're mercenaries. They're people that are hired to do this, to fight this other group of people. It's very, very unsettling. And that's why we name things and we put things on there, so there can be a thing called accountability.
Well, so returning to the point briefly there. So Barr latches on to the word tear gas. Right. Now his answer is completely off of the subject that the representative wanted him to be answering. He's not answering on whether it was appropriate to use that kind of force or not. He's saying, well, tear gas was never, it's my understanding tear gas wasn't used. He's arguing the technicalities of that.
And there was a callback called, well, that's semantics. And he goes, semantics? What do you mean semantics? You know, it's like, because he knows that certain words don't have much power. Semantics doesn't have much word. It's like a 75-cent word is going to be rejected immediately. Semantics, I don't even know what that means.
Many Americans probably don't know what that means. It wasn't helpful.
And it's like, instead of saying, I was like, so you would like me to argue? So you've got to be ready to step into the false truth and know that you can come up and clean it up. So you would like me to get in an argument on whether or not it's tear gas or not. Is that the argument you would like me to use to lose all my time? Is that what you're thinking?
I wonder what he would say to that.
He's going like, how did this person get my arm behind my back? Are you trying to stall out the time that I have? No. Well, then let's talk about my question then.
Yeah, let's not argue about whether it was tear gas or whether it was not. It was at least very heavy-handed use of force. I mean, there are probably other things you could have done, right?
Immediately, you're able to. That gives you the platform of meeting. See, the thing is, meeting the need for safety by injuring people. Meeting the need for safety by injuring people, just so the president can walk out and look like a powerful leader and create a picture to be promoted with a Bible in front of a church. Is that what we've turned into? Is that what we're looking to do?
So you can really hear that a more disciplined, I would say, and skilled as a person asking questions could really help peel back the onion on truth more and get to something productive. And that was my whole disappointment in this hearing.
I'm glad you brought this example.
Sound bites.
It's a great example. It's a great example. And the Republican on the other side is going to give you the opposite soundbite. He's going to try to create the cover for him by creating it's called a prospective future, a possible thing that could have happened. It wasn't happening, but it could have. So.
Well, and you're right, Bill, because Jim Jordan, the representative from Ohio, who's the ranking Republican member on the committee, he asked the question of Bill Barr. He said, Attorney General Barr, if you had not, or maybe he didn't say you, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, if the military had not cleared the square, would St. John's Church still be standing today? And I'm just like, whoa, there's an incredibly loaded question. Now we're saying
Yeah.
they didn't clear it for protesters, but Barr actually answers saying that, well, it was really necessary to use. And it's weird because he first argues that tear gas wasn't used, and then he comes back and says, well, tear gas was used to clear the protesters so the fire trucks could get in to the square because there were fires that needed to be put out. We're like, what?
Right. So look at how he manufactured, a story. And, I don't know if there was a live fire there. I don't know if there was a live fire truck there. But there is now a counter truth that is now existing. From Barr just has to sit there. Actually, Jim Jordan actually creates he's the person that creates the false truth,
Right.
and saying as a speculative thing is that the church would have been burned down.
And of course, his very conservative voters in his district love that because they're all about protecting churches.
Protect the church. But the need for, rather than the need for safety not being met for the protesters, the need for safety is being met for the president to go for a walk that he didn't need to do for the need for safety. And then it changes to the safety to the church. That's problematic because now all of a sudden we're really not talking about the truth on, was there any sirens go? Was there any active fire within a 1 mile radius of that? Was there active fire? And look at how I'm asking the question if I'm following up Jim Jordan. AJ Barr, was there an active fire near there? And why would the president be going to an area when there's a potential fire in the area? Does that look very safe to you for the president? Are you sure you needed safety, that level of safety for him? And by the way, are you saying that there wasn't safety in the White House? Didn't he leave safety to go, and you needed to provide safety for him to make a statement? Is that to take a picture? So is that the kind of leader that we have? Is somebody that needs to take a picture to look strong instead of leading from his words? He needs to lead from his impressions. Is that what we're doing here? See, what need is the person going for? It seems like that the president was just trying to get respect. And he's trying to demonstrate strength and respect. Is that what he was doing? Is trying to demonstrate strength and respect? And he used the military to demonstrate strength and I don't think the military was for that. I think the military is for protection for the citizens. I don't think it's for strength. Is it for strength?
Can you imagine if any of those representatives in that hearing on the Democrat side had actually gone with that kind of narrative to reveal the bigger truth instead of the soundbite that they were trying to get to take a shot and make the news cycle? And even Jim Jordan, the whole church thing, would the church be standing? That's a soundbite meant for the news media and to rally up his base. None of it.
So I feel disheartened. And then I said, gosh, I can appreciate the protection of property, but is it protection of the president more important by not going out into an environment that you think it's not safe? So you need that level of protection? See, what need is the president going for? Respect, self-worth, identity, the show of strength as a part of their identity. Do we want a leader to do it to use the military for that? No, they're for protection. They're not for that.
Well, and now, ever since Lafayette Square, like you mentioned, in Portland, he's continued to use these kind of military tactics
Right.
to try and portray himself as the law and order president, the one who's going to restore things. But of course, he's only doing it in cities and
It's
states
not law.
that
It's
are,
he's saying law and order, but it's
yeah,
law by manufactured crisis and violence.
right.
He, it's the weirdest part about this is that if the protesters took 2 weeks off, they took 2 weeks off. If there was a message that I would send out to protesters, hey, everybody, take 2 weeks off. And let the news cycle not have any chaos in it. Don't give them any pictures. Take 2 weeks off. Take 3 weeks off.
Right, because it'll just take the wind right out of the sails of what he's trying to do.
Yeah, because how is he going to manufacture a crisis and show strength against nothing? They're going to go back and show old clips. I mean, Fox News will have nothing to put on the air.
Wow.
There's nothing to put on the air. What a tyrant does is create a crisis so they can show strength against the crisis, real or imagined. Because there is terrorists that are going to do stuff, but they also create situations where crisis is taking place. Nothing like a good fire to create a news cycle. Nothing like it. You get a fire going, burn something.
Well, because when you're in crisis mode and dealing with that, it really relieves you from having to deal with being proactive, doesn't it?
It does. You can't be proactive. You have to be reactive. So there's something weird in our psychology that if the more reactive you keep a human being, the less they can look at the future. That gives a tyrant the ability to run the future. They get because there's no bandwidth for the person to plan their future, to create stability, to create the things. The chaos is needed for the tyrant to stay in place. And every little message, every tweet is a message that's creating outrage. The thing is that just take them all soberly and then empathize with the tweet. Oh, it looks like the president is feeling scared about his election and he wants to choose to put it off so that he can stay in power longer and decide to not go into the exchange of going back to him as a private citizen. It seems like the president doesn't want the opportunity to go back to the private citizen. He'd rather stay where he is with all the benefits of being the president. It sounds like he wants to stay. Oh, no wonder why he wants to move the election back. It's not about getting the votes right. It's about him staying where he is. Wow. Isn't that interesting that he's choosing that strategy? Gosh, I wonder how the integrity of the vote's going to be taken care of now at the local level, because that's where it needs to take place, right? It's like retro. It's like you just suck the power right back out of him because he doesn't, he could say, it's like, you know what, we're going to vote anyways, no matter what the president says, we're still going to vote. Is everybody okay if we still vote on the same day? And let's let good integrity Americans count each vote, because that's what they do. And let's double check it, because that's the way the voting booths work. And let's take a look at how we vote. Let's take a look at how the count things. All that needs to take place right now is a solid expose on how a vote is handled and how each state handles it. And all of a sudden, it's like, if I'm a Democrat, I would say, gosh, time for a documentary. Here's how the vote is handled. Here's how it's done this way. Here's how it's done. Here's how these things are captured. Here's the percentage inside the state. here's this person, here's this person, here's this person, here's this person.
But if you're a tyrant, if you're more interested in the qualities of tyranny, you're going to distract people from a future plan, it sounds like.
That's right. Yeah, the future plan is the thing to really disrupt. This is why having a worker working from paycheck to paycheck is it keeps the person so confused that they can't leave for another job. They have to like find a second job to augment their income instead of trying to find one job that gives them a personal life. I'd rather them having 3 jobs and they don't have a personal life just to feed the various different businesses and keep the salaries low. And I could keep that instead of, Tom, there's other countries where it's the law that they have that each person, human being in their country gets a vacation at least 2 weeks. Some countries have 3 weeks. And what does the human being get to do? They get to talk about their holiday when they come back to work. They talk about their holiday. They talk with guess what else the vacation does? It feeds the tourist industry. It actually feeds the economy when a person has a holiday. It helps their mental health. It keeps them from being volatile. They're nicer to their spouse. It's like, what are we doing to our own people by going down this path?
Having to be on the constant hamster wheel, right?
Keeping people on the constant hamster wheel instead of really, it keeps people medicated. It helps the alcohol business. It helps the pot industry. It helps the drug industry. It helps them to medicate the emotions and the anxiety and the nervousness and the anxiousness and the stuff. Because gosh, somebody talked to me, I'm working 6 days a week. I'm going like, I don't know. Why don't you get a new job? I can't because I'm working 6 days a week. I'm going like, that is the psychology that the person is being wedged into. And it's really sad and disheartening to even talk about it that way. When the future is hard to see and there's constant crisis, so there's no ability to plan for the future, there's no ability to do it, the person starts burning the internal resources that they have for their own identity and independence, and it allows the tyrant to take over their loyalty. Well, this guy is going to make it better for me. And that's exactly the way people voted. They voted, this guy's going to make it better for me because he's a business guy and he knows how to fire people. And I think that's what my boss does. And it's all familiar to me about firing people and stuff. As soon as we don't think about the future, if we don't have any bandwidth to think about the future, then the stability goes out, and then we're not moving in and out of properties. We're not able to move from one place to another because somebody's squatting someplace else. Not to say that there's any experience like this. The economy is not moving the way it needs to move. It's like it's like this is the way it's supposed to work.
Well, and so a couple of those qualities of that book on tyranny of quality
Right.
are obviously what the one that we're really emphasizing here. The future's hard to see, but then that really is closely related to keeping the population unbalanced, isn't it?
It is because if you keep the population unbalanced, then all of a sudden you're looking for a strong man that can take the military and march into and has these various different crises under control. See, there's a fantasy, but what the population doesn't know is the tyranny or the tyrant is actually manufacturing a regular crisis that they show a general command over instead of a healthy freedom. See, people are swapping their freedom for false safety. That's what's happening now. We have it's false safety to think that the National Guard or the government being in a city is creating safety in Portland. What are you guys, nuts? They're trading freedom for false safety. But other states are going like, oh yeah, we have rioters too. It's like you're trading freedom of expression for false safety. That means if you get together with a group of 20 of your friends and you're making too much noise and your neighbor calls on you, you might have a SWAT team that shows up, especially if you're in an African American community. Really unsettling, but that's the way that one threads out. It's really unsettling.
It is unsettling. It actually makes your proposed line of questioning, as we were talking about that House Judiciary Committee hearing, really much more meaningful when you talk about starting the line of questioning with Attorney General Barr with getting him to agree on elements of the Constitution.
Right.
I mean, he's a legal scholar. He's a very smart lawyer. I'm going to give him that credit for sure. He's a very skilled lawyer. That's why he so quickly latched on to the weakest part of the question and distracted in his answer, right?
Weak, and then amplify.
Right.
Find the weakest word and amplify that as big as possible. And then what happens is everybody's arguing on tear gas or not. I'm interested in safety and expression, or freedom and expression, versus what actually took place. You prevented people from gathering, and you sent a message of tear gas or chemicals, pepper balls. This is an example of a pepper ball. There it is.
As if the crowd wouldn't have voluntarily parted ways for fire trucks with their sirens blaring and horns honking, trying
Easily.
to get to a fire. That really,
they manufactured a false future. If we don't look at, a lot of times we keep things, we're in a place, especially recently after the last 8 years of Obama, we were in a place of, it looks like we were turning the corner and going up, up, up. It looks like we were moving in that direction, the up,
right.
up, up place. And so what people started doing is they started to forget about history. They said, oh, it can't happen here. Oh, it can't happen. It can't happen here. Tyrant can't take over. And a tyrant took over. Now, and then as soon as the tyrant takes over, here's the next thing that people say: the systems will take care of him. He'll get stopped at this next turn. And then he runs over that one. He'll get stopped at this next turn. Then he runs over that one. He'll get stopped at this thing. And all the complicity, all of the people are going like, well, I'm just one person. This is my job. And then all of a sudden, groups of people that are not in agreement with the loss of freedom, all of a sudden are helping the people to take away other people's freedoms, not knowing that it's coming to them next. And that's how the cascade talks about it, is that it's like lose group freedom, because the individual doesn't think that they have that level of strength, because the tyrant has all the power and muscle behind them, and they go, well, I don't want to lose my life over this. It's like, if it maintains the freedom for other people, that's exactly what most soldiers sign up for, is going like, I am protecting these set of values. Now, if they were looking at it and they were reading the thing and saying, wait a minute, I am not helping this president go over here because he's running over the rights of things. And, oh, I'm following my chain of command. It's like, listen, I got to tap out on this.
That puts our military people in a difficult position. I'm
Very
quite
difficult
sure.
position. Very, very difficult position. But I'm not saying this. I'm not saying freedom's easy. I'm not saying protecting liberty is an easy task. It is not an easy task. And history is going to teach us this. I mean, we're getting that lesson right now coming up to the election. I mean, we're sitting here.
Well, that's what I was thinking. As you said, well, there's going to be the next thing is going to change it, or the next thing is going to, get in his way the election is really the next big thing that potentially can get in Trump's way from continuing to be tyrannical. Of course, he's making noise that let's move the election, or I don't know that I'm gonna accept the results.
Can it possibly be the end of the Republican Party? Can it possibly be if he gets elected again? It becomes if he gets elected again, if he were to get elected again, if because a lot of times if you don't pay attention to history, the answer is, will Stalin or Hitler or Gaddafi or Kim Jong-un, or if a person's talking like, oh yes, a lifetime of leadership, that looks interesting to me, when President Xi said, oh, I'm going to be I'm going to be in charge of China for my lifetime because I'm going to be in charge of my lifetime. That means you cannot poke fun at him, and you cannot pick it because he's going to be there the entire time. There's no humility and there's no transition of change. A nation state that moves in the place of a nationalism, it's a nationalist movement. Once it becomes nationalist, our nation is doing it. It's like as soon as the person goes, they take there's an entire vacuum, because there's not the vibrancy of active leadership to see who's going to lead next. No one's practicing to lead China. No one's practicing because he's the leader. So as soon as he's gone, the vacuum shows up. Same in North Korea. There's no Kim Jong-un is never practiced, had the rigor of being leader and enrolling people to do things. There's no rigor. There's no tempering of him to be a good leader, to lead his nation forward. There's no tempering to get multiple people in that nation in multiple business sectors to just work together. And so the nation goes flat like that. That's what a third generational change that's what that style of leadership looks like. And people don't understand the weakness of that. Leadership you've got to stay in the room to get people to do things and move things along for the greater good, not for the will of the leader. That's where it changes. That's where the questioning needed to go, Tom. So it's up to the will of the leader. The will of the leader gets to take place at the expense of the people. Is that Bill? Is that Bill Barr? Is that what you're saying? The will of the leader. Oh, wow. That's really authoritarian. I didn't know that we're doing that now. Are we doing authoritarianism now, Barr? No, we're not doing authoritarianism. Oh, okay. So is it, do the people in the square have the same rights as the president?
Now you're shining a productive light on things that are happening, aren't you? I mean, but yes. So I'm still left, and I know we need to sort of stick the landing here somehow. And this has been a great discussion, and I really appreciate it. But what's disheartening to me is our elected political leaders, in what are supposed to be hearings conducted to seek out truth, to find evidence, to gain understanding of things that have happened so they can make smart decisions and govern, are not very skilled at getting to truth, or they don't care to get to truth, and they're just caring more about the soundbite and appearing good on TV in the district. I don't know which one's worse, honestly. I have to think about that one a little bit.
Yes.
But if they really were of clear minds and trying to uncover truth, shine a light on it, and make smart decisions going forward for their citizens, those hearings would be entirely different.
They would. They really would. They really would. They've got to watch this one. This one is the Republican Party has been going down this narrow chasm between two mountains for the last 30 years. And they've just wedged themselves. And we've talked about some other Republicans are going like, wait a minute, I am not in this party. This is not where I was. And wait a minute, this party has hijacked and sold me these values, but they weren't about these values anyways. They were about the values of the 1% or the wealthy or the government or this, this is where the values are. We didn't know. The Republican Party didn't know that they were setting up the grounds for this condition that we're in. They put themselves here just by buying the narrative that there's not a balance between the collaboration and cooperation that is a part of the Democratic Party. It's not as strong as I would like it to be, but it's and the individual responsibility that used to be on the Republican Party, because there's not individual responsibility. Jim Jordan is not being responsible. Lindsey Graham is not being individually responsible. Mitch McConnell is not individually responsible. No, they're not after the good of the nation.
They're very much after their own self-interest and
on their self-interest and staying in power.
It's not about that. I don't think we can give the Democrats a complete pass here.
There is no free pass for the Democrats. I'll be glad to slash and burn anytime you want, Tom, because their silence right now is not helpful. They think it is. Them trying to set a future message is not helpful because the nation can't hear it. They need to talk values. They need to set the vision. And they're not doing that.
Well, values and fairness, I think fairness, safety, and protection are probably the three things that are affecting people's decisions the most going into this election. And when we can get back to people feeling they have safety and protection and more fairness, then they'll listen to more of the vision for the future.
Yeah, I think so. I think there needs to be some more fundamentals back in place that we're going to work, the government and the states are going to work better together. The narrative of states' rights has been hijacked, and now because once you push the states' rights narrative long enough, the states start to crumble. Let me say it one more time. If you push the states' rights narrative far enough, then what happens is the states start to crumble because they don't have the resources. They don't have the money to handle things from a national level. They just don't. So what winds up happening is the governors become weaker and weaker and weaker. And then what happens is that, well, this governor is so weak, let's just get rid of the governor and we'll just handle this from the federal level. It's like, what the hell just happened? Same thing happened in Russia. Same thing happened with Russia. Same thing. Same. Yeah. So it's very, very sad. I know this level of projection is a little scary, but if somebody isn't talking about the level of projection and looking at the future, if we're not facing these things about what is the action of this individual doing and the accountability and the impact it has on the various different systems, we are now in a 10-year rebuilding of the professional ethics of the various different systems that we have in place. We have a 10-year rebuild that is about ready to face us. And if he's not gone for the next 4 years, it's 20 or it won't come back. It's really difficult because
that's some scary honesty right there.
Yeah. And so what winds up happening is like, why do I need a car? I'm staying at home.
Yeah.
You know, well, that crushes two industries right there, automotive and insurance companies.
Boy, somehow
people are out of work.
Somehow I'm seeing in my head the vision of, I think it's that movie, is it Wall-E or something, where all the people are on this ship and they're lying in lounge chairs and everything comes to them on a silver platter and all their food is in a cup. I mean, are we getting to that point where we don't have to leave the
please no. Please no. I have enough weight on me already. That's very funny.
Oh my goodness.
I got my extra 10 pounds I don't want. So yeah,
well,
at the end of the week.
Well, forgive me for that reference, but I needed to laugh a little after that discussion.
That's a good moment. It's a really thing. Tom, there's more to come on this. I think we need to poke at how to create a future we can all see together, and then how to recultivate history to go like, hey, historically we're doing something similar that happened, in Europe, and we might not want to do that because, the great state of Texas was never a nation.
Okay. I think, we got to start. We do have to start getting to a vision of the future.
We do.
And then eventually get to some restoration, hopefully as we get through November and we don't reelect our current president and he actually leaves office, then maybe we can start to get to some restoration too.
Yeah, I think the restoration part is essential. All right, Tom, thanks a million.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. All right, take care. All right, bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.